Hello and welcome back aboard the good ship, the spaceship ship.
The Space Show show. It's
or
your
the space,
show.
the
You should
spaceship
know.
ship. It's the Space Show. I was looking at the word ship, and so I just said ship. Well, this is embarrassing because I'm here with Admiral Kerry Jackson, but I felt confident enough to promote myself from ensign to lieutenant as we enter season 2.
Absolutely, you should.
Well, I am your host, Lieutenant Rebecca Frost, and we're talking about season 2 of the original series of Star Trek. The episodes we're going to talk about today are Amok Time, Who Mourns for Adonais? Adonais? And I'm
Adonais.
not going to say that right at all. The Changeling, Mirror, and the Apple. This is a very exciting episode that we are going to be embarking on because I want to talk a little bit about some of the season 2 upgrades that have come. We see some upgrades to the bridge equipment. And I know I said last episode, I could tell that there was a bit of a bump up in budget. And I was incorrect. Second season, production budget per episode was around $185,000, which is less than what it was per episode in season 1, which was $190,000 per episode.
And this is late 1960s dollars, so that's a lot of money.
That's quite a bit of money. Nimoy might have been recast if negotiations for his contract fell through. Nimoy's agent had asked for Nimoy's salary to be increased from $1,250 per episode to $9,000 per episode.
Oh, that's a jump.
Eventually, they reached a compromise of $2,500 per episode, and he signed on for the second season. I thought that piece of information was very topical for today, as
Yes.
as we're struggling to pay actors apparently, and
There's no struggle to pay it. You make it sound like, there's no money.
There's
there's
no
plenty
money.
of money. Sell
Mr.
one of your yachts,
Zaslav, Mr.
yeah.
Iger, where's all the money going? Whatever.
Sell one of your yachts, fellas.
Jeepers creepers. Maybe you don't have to make $1 billion a year. I get by just fine without $1 billion a year. And one other change that was made, the theme music for the series was slightly rearranged, and a woman, Lulie Jean Norman, supplied vocal accompaniment. And I quite like the new theme. I think it sounds... Because the thing I love the most about the theme, especially in the opening and the closing, the bongos, I absolutely love...
Very
bongos.
late 60s.
Yes.
Very late 60s. Very laugh-in.
It's a vibe that I absolutely love. But let's jump right on in and talk about Season 2, Episode 1, Amok Time. In the throes of his Ponfar mating period, Spock must return to Vulcan to meet his intended future wife betrothed from childhood. Listen, I hated this episode.
Oh, now, come on. This is one of the best episodes. Here you go. See the Spock action figure where he's got his
sash.
His decorative sash. I couldn't find the Kirk one. I wanted you to see the Kirk one with the slit chest open shirt, but I couldn't find it. It's under. I'm going through my toys and selling a lot of them, so I'm not able to find it. I'm sorry, but
that's okay.
Anyway.
That's okay. Next time. Yeah, I just okay.
Why
what
did
I
you
liked,
hate this one?
What I liked
Okay.
about this episode, I liked that new. I liked that new music. I liked this new vibe. I liked this new semi-new set. It's giving very heavy season 2 we're back baby vibes, and I really like that. I do not like that it seemed that the studio was like, can you make Spock hornier? Because I understand. I get it. It just felt like they're shoving an agenda in my face of this show needs more sex. Can you figure that out?
Oh, come on. Season 1 was full of sex. It was all Kirk sex, but
It was all Kirk, but I feel like they were like, we need Spock to be just like a tad bit more relatable. Can you put him in heat and figure that out?
Well, and see, that's why,
and it's just...
See, that's why I like J.J. Abrams Spock. Okay, heresy, I know. I like J.J. Abrams Spock because he's more relatable. He's come to peace with his human half, and he's okay with it. He struggles with it, but he's okay with it. where this guy fights it.
Yeah, and I don't know. Maybe it's because, I've just spent the last, 28, 29 episodes really liking the Spock that we have, and now suddenly he's mean? Why is he being mean to our friends?
It is the Pon farr.
He's horny. He's mean because he's horny and in heat, and I don't like it. One of my notes is literally, damn, dude, settle down. And one of my other notes is, wow, this is an insane premiere episode. And I know you had mentioned it last week, how you consider this episode to be a good one to introduce people to Star Trek.
I got thinking about what you said, and I think you're right. This is not a good episode to introduce them.
No, because it's not Spock. It's not Spock as we know him. He's so out of character. And I understand. I don't like it, though. It does give us a little taste of Nurse Chapel and Spock, and are they into each other?
Well, she's certainly into him, that's for sure.
And so after a couple back and forths, which I also found extremely irritating, they decide to just go to Vulcan and let him get his jimmies out, right? Let him just get his jollies out.
He's got zoomies.
He's got zoomies. Let's take him out back to Vulcan so he can get it out.
Well, the idea is that he would probably die unless we returned him to Vulcan and let him go through the ritual.
I know I have been horny enough where I thought I was going to die. So, same, I guess. But this episode is a lot of first appearances for stuff. This is the first appearance of the Vulcan hand salute. Nimoy improvised this symbol during production and it was modified from a traditional Jewish religious hand gesture.
Mm-hmm.
This is also the first appearance of the Vulcan phrases peace and long life and live long and prosper. And it is also the first ever Star Trek episode to feature any Vulcan characters other than Spock. And we get a lot of them.
We do. We get a whole parade.
Something I have noticed about season 2 so far, they're giving women a lot more to do, and I really appreciate that. We've got, what was her name? The only Vulcan woman, the only Vulcan who was denied a role in the Federation or something.
She turned it, to Powell.
Yeah, she turned it down. And listen, I don't exactly remember why our boys have to fight, because the betrothed woman picks someone to fight on her behalf.
Well, the whole process is that, they've been chosen by their parents that, this is an arranged marriage. And at the ceremony, it's what it is she's they're supposed to do the ceremony and get married. But she also has the challenge option, Khalifi. And the challenge option means that she can pick anybody, and it's usually thought to be the one that she really wants to marry. And that person would fight for her and get her, but it is to the death, is the Vulcan tradition. So that's why they were fighting. It was her. She was being sneaky because she had a thing with Ston. See,
so she picks Kirk to be the challenger, and we have brother fighting brother. And we think Spock is going to kill his friend Kirk.
Well, this contest is to the death.
And also the introduction. This is the music. This
is the music.
The fight music that we all know and love. Dun 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 dun.
Which they use beautifully in The Cable Guy. If you saw the movie, Jim Carrey, The Cable Guy, there's a great scene, and Ben Stiller had something to do with it because he directed it. The Star Trek fight music, and Jim Carrey is singing along with it as they're fighting.
Yeah. Oh man, I didn't even think about that. Brilliant. That's hilarious. I wish this episode had a lot more side eye as well, because we see a lot of like Kirk and McCoy being like, what is happening on this planet?
I loved the Kirk and McCoy back and forth during this, because it's just like, wow.
Yes. Oh, Dios mío. And also the Vulcans, extremely petty people. They I wish I could remember specifically when I took this note, but I just have a note saying, wow, the Vulcans are super petty people. But yeah, for a first episode of season 2, I get it. For normies, if this is your first episode of like this new season that you have heard all about and you're like, well, I guess I better tune in. I guess it's going to hook some people because you got horniness, you got violence, you have Shatner
with his slit shirt.
with his slit shirt. Also, I love absolutely no blood. There's another episode coming up later where Kirk gets like punched in the face and he has just like a little dribble of blood down his mouth. And it's like, go. I understand it's the 60s, but go harder on your violence and your bloodshed.
No, this episode was really important as far as like, you know, laying down the Vulcan lore, getting, you know, we learned more about their whole traditions and all of that. Hot as Vulcan is the saying. I love that bit. Hot as Vulcan. I know what they mean now. That was cool.
Yeah, oh my gosh. The humans, they don't have the double eyelids. Are they okay? Are they blind?
The thin air that played into it, you know, the heat and the thin air. And T'Pring's plan was actually pretty good because
yeah,
she wanted to be with Stan because, you know, Spock's off doing his starship thing. Stan's there for her. Everything's cool. She wants to be with Stan, but if she picks Stan for the Caliphie, the chances are he might get killed. And
yeah,
she wouldn't have him. And that's why at the end, Spock says to her, your plan was flawlessly logical. Absolutely flawlessly. I got to admire it. Good on you.
Well, and she explains it extremely well, too. And I respect that.
And so that was such a great part. And then at the end, when T'Pau says, live long and prosper, Spock, and he says, I will do neither.
Seriously, what a line.
I'll do neither because I killed my captain and my best friend.
Oh my gosh, I definitely forgot about this moment where he does think he's absolutely killed Kirk, right?
Absolutely.
And he's like, wow, okay, F me, I guess. And then he gets back on the ship and McCoy is like, well, Spock, what do you think?
And he says, well, and Spock says, I have, you know, you have to arrest me because, you know, you're ranking officer, you have to arrest me and contact Starfleet, let them know it's all over. And then Kirk just kind of
saunters up the way he does.
Don't you think you ought to ask me about that?
God, I know that Shatner gets a lot of flack for the way he speaks and presents, and I love every second of it.
When he tones it down, he's good. All right, I'll say that. But if you let him go without direction, then there's a problem.
I don't know. Over the top Kirk, I love him.
But that's such a great moment when he says, don't you think you should ask me about that first? Spock, Captain, Jim, and smiles. And then, well, I'm quite pleased, Captain, to see that you're fine. And McCoy starts immediately ribbing him. You were about to give us a performance that would bring the house down, Spock. It was just going to be amazing. You, oh no, I was relieved because a valuable captain in Starfleet.
They have started adding something to these episodes, which they kind of had in season 1, which I call the roadside beer in Supernatural, but it's the wrap-up chat at the end of every episode where it's these 3 guys just razzing on each other. I adore that so much. And yeah, I definitely forgot about that. It's been a minute since I've watched this episode, so I didn't exactly remember how it ended, but fantastic.
I just think it's one of those great episodes. I'm sad you didn't like it, but hey, you know.
When Spock is normal Spock, fantastic. Love it. When Spock is anything but himself, I think it's so weird and I just don't like it. Well,
should we move on to the next one?
Yeah. Who mourns for Adonais? No, that's the wrong one. A powerful being claiming to be the Greek god Apollo appears and demands that the crew of the Enterprise disembark onto his planet to worship him. I actually really liked the concept of this episode.
Now, for the folks watching on YouTube, this is my impression of the episode. Are you ready? Here we go. That's it.
His ship is just...
That's the impression of the episode. The giant hand holding on to the Enterprise.
Yeah, another
hand in
energy,
space.
just an energy hand
Energy
gripping a
hand.
ship.
Yep, like you do.
But I liked the concept of this episode as maybe the Greek gods were visitors from another planet who did come to Earth and kind of control the way things were. I thought it was kind of annoying because he, and again, another man who thinks he's a god, right?
Yeah, well, yeah. It's the 60s.
This episode also not very forward thinking as far as women in the workplace, because they talk about what's her name? Oh my God. I'm struggling this episode. Leslie Parrish, I don't remember her character name. But they were talking about how, oh, what a lovely woman. It'll be a shame when she gets married and has to leave work because God forbid she marries and also works.
Yeah.
And,
But of course, the Greek god himself had these ideas about women as well, which were very well, ancient. But you got to give it up to the guy who plays Apollo, because first of all, fit.
Super fit.
Yeah. Second of all, wearing that outfit and trying to be taken seriously—that's an acting job.
Well, William Shatner was so concerned with the height disparity that he disallowed any shots which would show him and the much taller Michael Forrest, the man who plays Apollo, wouldn't allow any shots that showed them side by side in the same frame. So according to Forrest, whenever Shatner would speak to him, Forrest would notice Shatner inadvertently standing on his tiptoes.
Can we get Mr. Shatner a box, please?
Which is so funny because in a later episode, The Apple, the people that he's talking to there as well, kind of the same deal, tall, tan, abs, toga, much taller than Shatner, but they're allowed to be in the same shot, and I wonder if it's because they're comically tan, but we'll talk about that later.
Could be, yeah.
Chekhov really showing his comedy chops in this episode because the hand grabs the ship and he goes, "Captain, it's a hand. That thing's a giant hand." Wow, good, great, good eyes.
And both he and Scotty were hitting on this woman that they went down with,
on this woman. Yeah, and really doing anything.
Scotty, they led us to believe that Scotty had a thing with her, kind of.
Yes. Well, there's a moment where Apollo is like, "Hey, lady, I've got an outfit for you," changes her into this Greek goddess outfit. And he's like, "Let's go off into the woods and have a discussion." And Scotty runs and is like, "No, absolutely not." And she's like, "Scotty, I'm a fully formed woman with a job. I can handle this." That gown that she wore was glued to her skin. I don't know if you noticed, but it was just
that was the only way that it could have stayed up, the way it was designed.
And it was glued, which was painful for her because it tore her skin when it was removed.
I'm guessing they didn't have double-sided sticky tape back then.
I want to say they did. But
they were just assholes. Okay.
They were just assholes. But yeah, like I said, I really like the concept of maybe the Greek gods were actually interplanetary beings who were on Earth for a spell and really shaped history that way.
There's a lot of books written about that sort of thing. How maybe that's why religion is what it is because of space aliens, and they saw what appeared to be magic, and they made it into a deity instead. It is a fascinating topic. Don't know if I believe it myself, but
okay.
That's just me.
Apollo also at one point says, "I've known loads of women," and then proceeds to name 2 women.
That's such a nerdy thing. I've been with women.
I know women.
I know
this one.
This one.
And not only that, he really reminded me of myself in the 5th grade because you had your horse girls, you had your Egyptian people, your Egyptian girls. I was a Greek goddess, a Greek gods girl.
I bounced back and forth between Egypt and Greece. Yeah.
And then there was a Titanic phase, of course. These are all the phases you go through as a youth, right? But Greek gods definitely spoke to me. And so he just kept listing names of gods. And I was like, I could do this too.
Name check. Name check.
Yeah. Like, you don't have to try to prove anything, man. We can just believe you.
I remember when I went through my Greek and Egyptian god phase, I remember asking my dad one time, I says, how come these guys have so many gods and we only have one? Oh, he didn't want to have that discussion.
Oh, no. I remember there was once upon a time I asked my mom, because my extended family is Mormon. And so I was like, okay, well, what about aliens? If we're made in God's image, what about aliens? And my mom was like, well, when I was younger, the bishop told me that they all have their own gods.
But there's only see, this is why Dad didn't want to have the discussion.
If we get thinking too much about it.
What's interesting about this episode, and this is a little off note, this is for the diehards now, is that the theory is that Apollo and what's her name?
Leslie.
Leslie, sure.
Yeah.
That Apollo and Leslie had sex. She got pregnant. The kid is in a series of books written by Peter David. These are the Captain Calhoun Excalibur books, and he is the navigator on the bridge, and for some reason he is the greatest navigator in all of Federation history. It's because he uses his God mind side to map the stars in his head. It's a fascinating little offshoot. It's a great series of books. If you're a diehard Trekkie, I really recommend them. The Captain Calhoun series from Peter David. Really good stuff.
I've just looked it up on Memory Beta. What is the non-canon Star Trek wiki? Oh.
Yeah, because it's books.
Calhoun.
Because it's books, it's not considered canon, these series of books, which is
Goodness
unfortunate.
Gracious.
Because it's got so many interesting characters in it, and a great ship, and the Mackenzie Calhoun is an alien, and, it's just a really cool series of books if you're into it. Anyway.
Interesting. Okay. Putting a pin in that. I will come back to that later because that seems interesting. But let's talk about the next episode called The Changeling. A powerful, artificially intelligent Earth probe with a murderously twisted imperative comes aboard the Enterprise and mistakes Captain Kirk for its creator. Mm-hmm. The dangers of AI. Am I right?
You could go there. You certainly could.
This episode is really just a floating robot that seems to get by anybody unnoticed because it opens doors, Carrie. Those doors are not quiet, and the engineers especially are like, well, must be just engine room noises.
It sounds like the rest of the ship, and it looks like it's made out of kitchen utensils. Anyway.
It does. It gave me big Dalek vibes because it had a whole mission. At first, I was extremely bored by this episode because they were taking forever to get to the point. But then eventually, they get to the point where they say, or the robot explains itself, and it's like, it's not because the robot explains itself. It's because Spock mind melds with the machine, and its whole purpose is to sterilize the Star Trek version of exterminate.
Yeah, sterilize that which is imperfect.
Which, by the way, not a big fan of how it describes the female brain when it scans Uhura, because it says, boy, it was chaotic in there and I did not like it.
But again, I love this show, but Nomad allegedly erases Uhura's brain
to sterilize it because he didn't like how it was crazy in there.
But the next thing you know, she's, I think next episode she'll be back and, running communications and doing her job just fine.
They even drop a couple lines about that in the episode because her mind gets wiped. And first of all, she reverts back to Swahili. I'll talk about that in a second. But her mind is wiped, and so they're kind of teaching her to read again, and she's picking it up super fast. So it's there. It's not like it left.
Okay, I like that explanation.
But
Okay.
then at the end of the episode, I think Kirk asks for an update on her, and they say she's at college level now. She'll be back to regular in just like a couple of hours or something like that.
Wow.
So their reverse brainwashing works magic.
Okay, I'll buy it. Sure.
The robot kills Scotty, and I had a sincere moment of, oh my god, did they for real just like kill Scotty? But then the robot has necromancy powers and is able to bring Scotty back to life.
He's able to, just like, looking at the instructions of something, going, oh, okay, I can fix that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they upload all of these biology and neurology and all of these other doctor medicine-y books into it, and it's like, oh yeah, I can fix that. And then just gives Scotty a once-over, and then Scotty is suddenly okay, like nothing ever happened. Why not do that on Uhura?
Hey, yeah. Thank you. Oh, okay. I mean, this is not a great episode. It's an okay one.
It's an okay one. It's a know-it-all robot, and I think at one point Kirk is like, oh, it's a know-it-all, fix-it-all robot. Why don't we just keep it? And then I realize it's kind of racist, and just wants to go around sterilizing everything.
Yeah. It's because these carbon-based units have infected the Enterprise, and they are imperfect. The only thing that pauses Nomad from destroying the ship and the people inside of it is because Kirk shares the same name as the creator of the probe.
And that's how they get the probe to ultimately kind of destroy itself by showing its hand and saying, "Hey, here's the illogical things in your thing, because I'm not your creator, and you have not figured that out yet. So you have failed.
Yep.
You're imperfect. You must destroy yourself."
Yeah, follow your orders and sterilize. And so
Yeah.
they beam it out into space and it blows up.
It made me think a lot about that Mars rover and its last words. When it said something like, my battery is low and it's getting dark. Oh, I know it's a robot on Mars, but holy Toledo.
It's Wally. Now, what about Swahili? You were going to talk about
So Nichelle Nichols has frequently told a story about getting into a dispute with director Mark Daniels over the filming of this episode. It had already been established that Uhura's first language was Swahili, and Nichols believed that after her mind was erased, Uhura would revert to her first language. However, Nichols herself did not speak Swahili, and Daniels wanted Uhura to speak English. Nichols refused to, telling Daniels, Nichelle Nichols doesn't speak Swahili, but Uhura does. Gene Roddenberry was eventually brought in to settle the dispute, and he sided with Nichols. A linguist specializing in Swahili was then brought in to write a few lines of Swahili that are spoken in the episode.
Because Uhura's name allegedly means freedom in Swahili.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall kind of a dud of an episode.
But put a pin in this, because your Star Trek journey continues. The human adventure is just beginning.
Oh, no.
The plot of this episode is essentially the plot of Star Trek the Motion Picture.
Oh.
Yeah.
Does Nomad come back?
Well,
no,
it's not
he's
Nomad.
dead.
No,
Okay.
Nomad is dead. It's a different probe.
Oh.
And I'm not going to ruin it for you because you haven't seen it. But it's essentially this episode, but on a grander, less killy, but the probe's purpose in the movie isn't to kill. I'll just say that. Where this one is, his purpose is to sterilize that which is imperfect. In the movie, it's different motivation.
Interesting. I don't like it when robots have motivations. But moving on to the next episode, Mirror Mirror. This episode sets the scene for so much stuff in the future. A transporter accident places Captain Kirk's landing party in an alternate universe where the Enterprise is in the service of a barbarically brutal empire. Okay, I'm going to get over my multiverse fatigue because I can see there's going to be a lot of it.
Well, and they do mirror universe episodes in Trek. I think they do at least one for every Trek series I've seen. Deep Space Nine did too.
Yeah.
2 or 3 maybe.
And it's okay. I'm going to just release my fatigue into the universe and just accept it as what it is. Because this episode was kind of, to me, like watching a comic book. I thought it was super fascinating. I also watched this episode with my husband, and that was a riot. Because first of all, this episode starts with like a mise-en-scene. It starts in the middle of a scene that's like already taking place. I had to pause the show to be like, did I miss something? And they are negotiating with this planet to try to mine dilithium crystals. And the planet is like, hey, no, thank you, please. So as they are beaming back up to the ship, wires get crossed. Kirk, Scotty, McCoy, and Uhura get beamed onto this other ISS Enterprise, not the USS Enterprise. And they all get sick outfits, baby. Kirk gets a fun new sparkle vest. Uhura's midsection is totally removed. And McCoy and Scotty just get gold sparkly sashes. But hot new outfits. And they greet each other with little Nazi salutes.
Yeah.
Big yikes.
Like that, yeah.
Yeah, well, and so like it was very funny at first because they kept their hands kind of low and their palms like kind of flat out, so it's not a direct. Oh, I don't even want to do it. Not even just like a direct Nazi salute. But as the episode gets further along, not everybody's on the same page, so people just start doing straight up Nazi salutes, and everyone is evil. And you know how Spock's evil? He's got a goatee.
That's how you tell.
That's how you tell. And it was fun to watch this with my husband because he was like, oh, shit, that's what Community is definitely referencing when they're talking about the evil timeline.
Exactly. You all have goatees in your evil timeline.
And Sulu is evil because he has a scar.
Oh, and he's here's the telling thing. I believe he's straight in this universe.
Oh, no. That is true because he does go up and like try to hit on Uhura, and Uhura's like,
I could change your mind.
Ew. Ew. They make references to a Gestapo. And they all salute each other. My husband walks into the room from grabbing a snack or something, and they're all doing the salute, and he's like, oh shit, are they actually Nazis in this universe? And I'm like,
pretty much.
Timeless tale, honestly.
Pretty much are. Now I have a couple of action figures of evil Kirk and evil Spock that I was going to show you, but I thought I'd show you the most important one because I know you want to talk about her.
Oh. You do not have... Is that a full Barbie?
That is a 9-inch, like full Barbie style, Dr. Marlena Moreau. As you can see, autographed.
Lieutenant. She's a lieutenant, by the way.
Yeah. Autographed to me, it says, to Carrie, peace and love, Marlena Moreau, and Barbara Luna, who is the actress's name, Barbara Luna.
Wow.
And she autographed that for me in 2007. She was one of those very important women to young Carrie growing up.
You know what? Apparently she was a very important woman to a lot of kids, and I'll tell you why in just a second. But you can definitely tell they're in a parallel universe because she's in Kirk's room and she's not blonde. He's got one type, and she ain't it.
You're the captain's woman until he says you're not. I love that line.
Yeah. So in the wake of this episode, a group of child fans started a neighborhood-wide letter campaign suggesting that the concept of a captain's woman, air quotes, be carried over into the series as a whole and requesting that Stephanie Powers be cast in that role.
Ooh.
I don't know who that is. Who's Stephanie Powers?
Heart to Heart. Did you ever see? No, it's an
No,
old show.
I'm
You don't
34, Carrie.
You don't know who Stephanie Powers is. A good choice, though.
I'll Google it. Eventually, Gene Roddenberry's assistant had to write to the group's 2 ringleaders to telling them to ask their parents exactly what a captain's woman was.
Oh, embarrassing.
Big, yeah. But apparently the idea of having just a bang-maid on your ship... well,
in the evil universe, sure.
Makes sense. I do like the way they have a very Klingon approach to promotions and stuff. Is everybody has their own private little henchmen, and you can be assassinated at any time, and people can just promote themselves.
Move up in the ranks by assassination.
And that's how Evil Kirk got his position, by assassinating Captain Pike. And my note is, you killed Captain Pike, I'll kill you, you mother effer. You don't just kill Captain Pike. Whatever, it's fine.
Oh, see, this mirror episode, it's just, like I said, you're going to encounter a lot of great Mirror Universe episodes coming up in Star Trek. And Star Trek Discovery, the first couple of seasons, one of the main characters is a Mirror Universe character that got pulled into our universe, and that's Michelle Yeoh. That's Philippa Giorgio is her name, and she is ruthless, and and is a major character in like the first 2 seasons of Discovery.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
You'll see. You'll get there.
The other universes scare me because the one that we're in, Starfleet, is just so nice. Starfleet is so good, and everything is good. And I know we had to go through terrible things like World War II and the eugenics war to get here, but like, it's so nice here. And then we go to these other universes and see how bad it could be. Do not. It makes me sad.
There's a few things in the Mirror Universe. One that comes to mind is the agonizers. I love the concept.
Yeah.
I love the concept where it's like everybody has their own individual agonizer on their belt, and it's if you're to be punished, your agonizer, Mr. Chekhov, and then he puts it on his chest, and it causes great pain, which gives birth to, I don't know if you've noticed with the Chekhov character, he has a particular scream. And it's really prominent in this.
Yeah.
It's the typical Chekhov scream,
The Chekhov scream,
which leads me to a lyric from one of my favorite Star Trek punk rock bands, a band called Warp 11, and the lyrics to the song "She Make It So." She got a red shirt on, and I'm gonna take it off. She'll feel the wrath of my con, and she'll be screaming like Chekhov. So there we go.
What a lyric! This episode also inspired the name of another band, Spock's Beard.
Yes.
Which I guess is a band.
It is a band, yes. Very good.
Something else I noticed too, I liked the way that they energized differently. They had a different light pattern as they energized versus when they energized on the other Enterprise. Woof, that's a lot of okay.
Kirk Tiberius in this, he seems like he would have been at home in this episode. I know he kept trying to get back. I get the feeling he would be at home in the Mirror Universe.
Yeah. I liked Evil Kirk. I wanted more of him. I thought but again, I like it when Shatner goes off the rails, and this was a perfect opportunity for him to do that. I like that Evil Spock was a fighter. There's a scene where they're all fighting Evil Spock. Even Uhura gets in on the fight, and he just throws her against a wall.
She's got her dagger in her leg thing there.
Yeah, sick.
And the sexy Uhura outfit. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I guess there was a whole controversy about women showing their navels around this time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But boy, Nichelle Nichols, she pulls it off all right.
Respectfully. Holy Toledo. And then also, small girl fight, because Marlene, it was like, well, if you don't take me with you, I'm going to shoot you. And Kirk's like, why? What's that going to do? And she's like, okay. And then they get back to the Enterprise, and everything's hunky-dory. And then this
universe.
With a big beehive hairdo, she comes up and needs some paperwork signed, and Kirk is like, Kirk's talking to McCoy, and McCoy's like, "Whoa, that's that lady," and he's like, "Maybe it's possible we could become friends." And then as the credits start to roll, Kirk gets up from his seat and walks over to talk to her.
Let me see that fuel consumption report again.
Oh, how bizarre! How bizarre indeed.
Maybe we should discuss these figures a little bit later, perhaps.
in the original story outline for this episode, Captain Kirk was trapped in the mirror universe alone, and it was gradually rejecting him, treating him like he was an invading germ by poisoning his systems. But the ideas were dropped. But what a fun idea that maybe we have seen currently.
Or something that you'll see coming up.
Oh, dag. Okay. Spider-Verse inspired by Star Trek, perchance?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to say anything. I'll let you.
Okay.
You'll see. You'll see.
I'll come across that on my own. But the
Right.
last episode we're going to talk about this week, the Apple. Primitive inhabitants of Gamma Trianguli 6 worship a god who orders them to kill visitors from the Enterprise. You don't like this episode, Carrie?
I'm not a fan. It spurned a play set for my Mego figures, but
Okay.
we got the dinosaur head Vol. Mm-hmm. All the world knows of Vol. But we got a play set for my Mego figures for that, and that was kind of cool. But other than that, although we do get to see one of the youngsters down on the planet, orange skinned and blonde haired youngsters, is a young what's his name now? David Soul, who played Hutch on Starsky and Hutch, the TV series.
Oh.
Who also, of course, had the hit song, Don't Give Up on Us, Baby.
Was that him? I'm learning
was
so
him.
much this episode.
There you go.
They beam down to this planet. It's paradise. They have a huge landing party. Apparently, this is the only episode to have a landing party this big. And the planet is described as like a paradise. And of course, what's paradise only inhabited by? Tan, blonde, white people.
And exploding rocks,
and exploding rocks.
I could, they kept talking about what a beautiful paradise it was, and then Spock is looking at the rocks and tosses one aside, and it explodes and kills somebody. And did you say something about this being paradise, Doctor?
This episode, quip heavy, extremely quip heavy. This episode also has a couple of other things I really love. Evil plants. I love it when the plants are evil and they get you. They can't beam up, which is an occurrence that happens weekly, so I don't know why they treat it like such an emergency every time.
That's because the Vol was blocking the transport.
Yeah. But like, there's every episode they can't beam up, and it's okay. It resolves itself. There's a moment where Spock takes some darts in front of Kirk from a plant, and Kirk is like, wow, you took that shot for me, and Spock is like, well, no, okay, don't get ahead of yourself.
Oh, that's funny.
What else happens? There's a moment where Kirk says to Chekhov and Spock, like, hey, you guys create a diversion, and so Spock and Chekhov have the cutest, tenderest fake fight.
Mm-hmm. And again, that's your comedy chops from Chekhov showing up again in that one.
I guess his hair, was it his hair? What's the name of the man who plays Chekhov?
Walter Koenig.
Okay. Apparently his hair was finally long enough. He didn't have to wear a wig anymore, which thank God, because that was such a terrible wig.
It was a terrible wig, just awful. And that was modeled after the Beatles.
Sure, I can see that.
That's the reason that they brought him on in the first place, is that there were too many old people on the show. And so they wanted to bring in a young guy, and they thought, well, the Beatles are very popular. Let's give him a Beatles haircut. And,
Insane. Not even current Beatles, like not even at that time current
No.
Beatles, like early Beatles, like, wow.
Yeah.
Just
At
so
that
behind.
Yeah, because at that time, the Beatles were long-haired
Long-haired
mustache.
hippies.
Yeah.
Not
They
they're
look-
cute.
Well, they look
Yeah.
like Lazarus from a previous episode. But anyway.
Jiminy Crimbus. So these inhabitants, they don't age. Val is a machine who's providing paradise for them, and everything is hunky-dory, and they don't age, they don't reproduce, like everything is fine. I agree with Spock at the end of this episode. Hey man, why did we destroy that monster? So that they could figure it out on their own, and we literally took paradise away from them. And Kirk and
Yeah.
McCoy are like, it'd be like that sometimes.
Well, and it's completely against, I mean, granted, it's early on in the show, but it's completely against what we eventually learn what the Prime Directive is.
Yeah.
And they really shouldn't have been on this planet at all. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure that the sensors on the ship knew that there was life on this planet, and they could tell what kind of life, and that it's not advanced enough for us to show up. Although they had the strange energy signature that they had to investigate, which is not like the primitive species, and the plan was to stay away from them. But it is completely against the Prime Directive for them to interfere in this whole civilization because they're pre-warp drive.
Yeah, because here's the thing. If we're talking about last week or a couple of weeks ago as of release date, a couple of weeks ago among the Lotus Eaters on Strange New Worlds, where they do remove the asteroid that's causing all the problems because it technically interfered with their cultural development. And that's their justification for why, Prime Directive, we're not going to be in trouble for interfering by removing this radioactive asteroid. But destroying Val, the monster that is the machine that has given them everything and has helped this society exist, I guess we don't know the history of that. Has that always been there? Is that an intruder?
It was never explained. I think that Kirk and McCoy didn't like this civilization because they weren't having sex. No one is having sex.
Okay, let's talk about it. This episode is so sex heavy, and not even just like doing it, but talking about it, right? Because they don't age. There's nothing wrong with them. There's no children. And so the big question among the group, especially Chekhov and Yeoman London, because they seem to have a thing. They seem to be horny for each other at the time. Well, how do they do it? How and the inhabitants are like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
How do you?
But then I think is it Akutu is his name? Something like that. Who's the one who speaks to Vol? Vol speaks truly to me now. Hear him. He's
with his little wire
his
hanger.
Antenna.
Yeah.
When they bring it up to him, he says, "Oh yes, the touching. Yes.
The touch.
Vol has forbidden this." These people have been alive for thousands of years.
Yeah, and they seem to be doing just fine. But then, of course, well, let's see where to even begin. There's a scene where they're talking about, if we destroy Val, these people are going to have to figure out how to do it. And there's a whole conversation amongst the crew of where Yeoman London is like, how are they gonna? And they all look at each other, and then Kirk says, well, Mr. Spock, you are the the science officer. Do you care to explain? I'm sure this woman knows how to have sex, okay? You don't have to be weird about it. And the bit of trivia I have, the actress Celeste Yarnall, who played Yeoman London, said it took a while to film the scene where she asks how the planet's inhabitants would do it after Val is destroyed, because William Shatner, Leonard Nimoy, and DeForest Kelley kept making up hilarious methods for procreating. Network censors were on set, and Yarnall said they were getting upset, which made everyone laugh more.
Of course.
Hilarious. But then there's a subsequent scene where London and Chekhov are in a pasture. It's very Twilight. And they do the touching. And two of the other inhabitants see them do the touching. And they're like, it seems to be pleasurable to them. And they're like, but why? To what purpose? And so then they try it. And they're like, we think we like it.
The discussion is, I don't understand. What's the purpose? It gathers no food. It doesn't serve Vol. And those are the only things that really they know
matter.
But it's funny because they start to kind of, maybe as David Soul Hutch, kissing, maybe just, and then the thunder, Wrath of God.
Don't do that.
Yeah, Wrath of God stuff. Just such a problematic episode all over.
Yeah, really. It's big yikes all episode. And then so they destroy Vol, and the people are like, well, what do we do now? And Kirk's like, you'll figure it out. You guys will have children, you'll develop. And they're like, what are children? And he's like, oh, you'll find out what children are. Hey, maybe give them a heads up.
Yeah, that a nightmare is on its way.
Imagine getting pregnant for the first time in thousands of years,
and also,
nobody knows what's happening.
Also, you'll be dying in about 60 years.
Oh my
how about
God,
that?
seriously. Truly, I'm on Spock's side at the end of this episode.
Yeah.
Why did you take this away from them?
What I also thought was interesting is that, I mean, Vol is pretty advanced and pretty smart. We're led to believe, but did he actually think that he could get these people, these sheeple, to be able to kill the strangers? You know, because the guy who speaks to Vol gather the men in the clearing, and we'll talk. He says, Vol speaks truly to me now. Hear him. We are to kill the strangers. And Hutch goes, I don't know. What is that? He goes, it is a thing to do. Vol demands it. And
You
he
get
pulls
the
out
head. This is their head.
the watermelon. This is the head of one of the strangers, and he takes a stick and he hits the guy with it.
And then you take the stick and you hit them with just like this.
And so Vol thinks that these guys who have never fought, I mean, yeah, they're all built, they're buff, but they've never fought. They'll be fine. They'll take care of these guys with no problem.
I had a thought when he's telling them like how to kill a man. Like these people had never killed anything before, let alone probably seen the inside of a human before.
I'm sure they're all vegan, yeah.
The way that watermelon exploded, I'm like, okay, now imagine that's an actual human head. They are going to be horrified.
Traumatized for the rest of their 1,000-year life.
Traumatized forever. Yeah, just a real...
But just like any religious fanatic, though, they'd talk their way through it because their God told them to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But here's the thing. Their God provided. Their God created.
Their God actually provided. Yes.
Their God actually provided. Nobody was getting hurt. Nobody was getting hurt. I just wish I knew more about Vol. Well, I can tell you a little bit more about Vol.
Go ahead.
Originally, the script for this installment called for Vol's stone dinosaur head to be destroyed by the Enterprise's phasers. The props department had put in a lot of work creating it with paper mache and refused to allow its destruction.
Union.
I love that. And then also, Spock's appearance is jokingly compared to Satan in the final scene. This resemblance caused discomfort to would-be advertisers when Star Trek was first being marketed.
No, it's a great line where he talks about, you know, and that's where the title of the episode comes from, the apple, Adam and Eve, and the fable, he says, of Adam and Eve and how the devil, gets people out of, and God casts them out of Eden, and the joke about, does anybody resemble Satan? Oh no, it was Kirk first says, "Are you casting me in the role of Satan, Spock?"
No, not at all.
Well, is there anybody on this bridge who even slightly resembles Satan?
Which is such a stretch. And also, if this is an episode where the overt metaphor is Adam and Eve in the garden, right? The Enterprise is the bad guys. The Enterprise is the snake. Even though I'm sure the dinosaur head is supposed to be like a big grand representation of, oh, look, a big snake. But if we're thinking about it, who tempts them? Yeoman London and Chekhov. Bunk. Case settled.
Yep.
Are you cast?
Oh, I thought I had my.
Oh no.
I thought I had my drop for. Are you casting me in the role of Satan? Okay, I'm sorry.
well.
It's not playing with me.
Are you cast?
Oh, damn it.
Oh,
well.
that it? Oh, well.
I had sound effects for you, and I'm sorry. Not working.
Well, that's okay. It's a good message to leave this episode on, that they aren't perfect. And I like that in a hero. I like an imperfect hero, although big mad that they just kind of ruined those people's lives.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, it's not a great episode. It's not a terrible episode. It's not it's not the Lazarus episode, that's for sure.
Yeah, I hope there's not another episode like the Lazarus episode, because I don't know that I can tolerate.
Oh no. There might be. There are some stinkers coming up. I'll just warn you.
Oh no. That's okay. They can't all be perfect.
We're in a pretty good run right now. Toward the end of season 1 and the beginning of season 2, we're in a pretty good run right now.
And from what I have read, season 2 seems to be the preferred season of the 3.
That's what I have been told many times. We'll find out together, won't we?
We'll find out together more next week when we talk about episodes 6 through 10 in season 2. But until then, we will continue to go where no man has gone before, but a lot of people have gone before. Thank you for listening, you guys, and we'll see you next week.